And I'm really excited to be able to chair the second half of the day. I hope I do as well as Kathy did with Epsilon. She did an absolute fantastic job. And I can't wait to kick off this first session related to the future of messaging, because it's not only one of my passion points. I know it's the other three panelists who are on the panel's passion points as well. So I want to jump right into it so we can have enough time to discuss. So if Ali would jump on and Robert would jump on and Joe would jump on. So let me introduce to you our panelists as they jump on. So I've got Ali Fawaz, who is the general manager worldwide for Automotive for Reputation.com. And not only does he carry a huge passion for messaging, it's just customer service as a whole and customer experience. He leads work for brands such as Ford, Chevrolet, and Cadillac. And he spends a great deal of time internally working with his teams to ensure that Reputation.com provides the products that the industries desperately need. So Ali, welcome and thank you. I want to jump now to Robert Lesnar, who is the Senior Director of Service Operations and Warranty for Audi of America. And that title probably doesn't do justice because he just does a few things from service loyalty to training to collision and everything in between as it relates to warranty. And Robert, really excited to have the OEM perspective here to talk about what OEMs maybe wish dealers would be doing, or what they think the relationship between businesses and messaging should look like. So welcome and thanks for joining. And then we've got Joe Kebke, General Sales Manager for Bob Brown Chevrolet. I don't have a paragraph for you, but like I said when we were chatting prior, anyone that knows the dealer space knows that a general sales manager has a great deal of responsibility, essentially reporting back up to the dealer principal or the corporate organization that owns the store. So Joe, thanks for coming. And here's how this is going to work today. I'm going to kick off with a couple of stats that coincidentally Facebook launched during our earnings call this past quarter, or Q1. And then I'm going to hand it over to Ali, who's going to do a quick presentation. Then we're going to jump right into Q&A. For those of you that are listening, please use the Q&A tool. You can use the chat tool. I will be looking at that throughout the presentation. We want to ask questions that you all are thinking about as attendees, so make sure you use that tool. So let me get to the stats, and then Ali, you can take this over. These stats come from our Q1 earnings call. So businesses that are currently using our WhatsApp business API. So partners like Reputation.com, who build off of our WhatsApp technology, are already sending more than 100 million messages per day. So that's 100 million messages between businesses and consumers a day. In fact, over the last year during the height of COVID, total daily conversations, so total daily conversations between people and businesses grew by 40%. I think that stat alone just shows the power of messaging between businesses and consumers. And finally, more than 3 million advertisers are utilizing our click to message or our click to WhatsApp ad unit because they want to bring the consumer into a conversation, maybe versus to a website where then the consumer sits back and they're on their own time to do what they want. The quicker they can get into a conversation or into a transaction, as David Holt from Asbury said earlier, as Jared from Hyundai said earlier, when we can put the buyer in control, and messaging allows us to do that, dealers are seeing higher PVR, higher gross, and ultimately more profit. So Ali, I'm going to hand it off to you. We're gonna hide our screens, and then we'll come back when you're done.
Sounds good, Bob. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, I mean, what Bob just shared is some powerful nuggets. I think you guys can all agree. I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to talk about, real brief, I think for about like 7 or 8 minutes. And then what we'll do is we'll go into our panel discussion. But I kind of want to level set with everybody where we are today when it comes to this rising platform known as messaging, right? There's the ability to connect today. It's never been more vital than it is now. Right? It's imperative that we actually look for new and different creative ways to relate and then engage with one another, and more importantly, with our consumers, right? And technology can actually facilitate these new ways to communicate from the tips of our fingers right now. We've got things like 5G connectivity, data-driven artificial intelligence, rich messaging features, and lightning speed communication that really, it sits in the back of our pockets today. And this hyper-connected world that we're living in, it creates exponential opportunities to communicate, but it's also presenting us with all kinds of new challenges. And one of those is really trying to figure out, how do we break through the noise of a very crowded mobile landscape today? So, we look at this shift that's occurring, from B2C to D2C, or direct to consumer, right? This is a huge shift, not only in how brands communicate with consumers, but more crucially, how consumers communicate with the brand, right? Now, think about it. Messaging is a two-way communication. It's unlike display advertising or search advertising or even your website. While some brands may actually still send, do not reply messages, consumers can reply to ask questions, to clarify details, maybe to change a service appointment. Consumers ultimately want to engage with the brand in a very different way today. And they've actually been kept on hold, I think, one too many times at this point, and you probably can all agree to that. And as a way of communicating, it's native to how people use messaging for their own ends, right? The way that you talk with, a consumer can now talk to a brand the same way that they would talk to friends or family. And that's what's happening through this evolution of messaging. Now, when we think about, the adoption of messaging, consumers and businesses alike are actually turning to messaging apps because they actually make users' lives way more convenient. Messaging apps are actually replacing things like email communication, online login credentials. If you're a business, it has the potential to reduce your dependency on something like a call center, and eventually, potentially even reduce the need for web browsers themselves, right? There's all kinds of different capabilities here that messaging lends itself to. And I want you to think about this. Think about where we were when it comes to the way we would engage with our emails. Back in 2012, about 27% of people would use a mobile device to check their email, right? So majority of people, that means we're going online on their desktop, on their PC, on their laptop, and that's how they would check email in 2012. Fast forward to 2020, and now what we see is 81% of people check their email through a smartphone, through a mobile device. Now, if you think about that, the tool that you're using now being a mobile device, that tool is what you're using to check emails. Well, that tool does many different capabilities and handles things differently than a laptop or a desktop PC. And because of that, what we're finding is that you have to adapt to the new tool, right? And what we're finding, in fact, is that 78% of consumers would like to communicate with a business via text messaging. It only makes sense because if you think about email, myself, I don't necessarily check my personal email on a daily basis. I might check it every other day. There may be sometimes where I'll go a week and then I'll have to go back and check on email. And I know I'm not the only one that does that. So when it comes to an SMS message, guess what? Messaging, I'm getting it live right there, whether it's an SMS message or if it's from WhatsApp or Messenger. Those are things I'm checking as soon as they come in. In addition to that, if you look at other things that consumers are actually looking at, why are they more inclined to want to have conversation through these platforms? Well, it's the ease of interaction, right? Simple as that. Speed of the conversation. We live in an instant gratification world right now, and so I want it now. It lends itself well to that. Get quick answers to general questions. Get reminders, right? Service reminder pops up, lets me know that, oh yeah, I've got an appointment today at 1 o'clock. And then you've got direct communication. There is no fluff, right? There's no small talk required. Whereas with email, there's more formalities there. With a phone call, there's some formalities there. For whatever reason, we are a lot more lax when it comes to SMS messaging, and the consumer feels that way as well. So we want to engage the consumer where they feel most comfortable. And of course, finally, there's a written record of it. So if I had a chat conversation there, then I've still got it stored. I know what we had talked about, so I can always reference back. So these are just some of the components. Now, I want us to go back a little bit further to around the end of 2015, maybe early 2016. That was when Uber partnered with Facebook, in fact, to allow its users the ability to book an Uber through a messenger chat, right? And this made the tech business community's head spin. Because if you think about it, until this point, messenger and different capabilities like these, it was really just, peer-to-peer, me and my friend engaging with one another, or me and my family engaging with one another. So the idea that, wow, suddenly there's a business case scenario that can be used on messaging, and it totally spun things around. Mary Meeker, who you see pictured here, she's a very well-known venture capitalist in the tech space, and she's been writing an annual technology report probably since the mid-90s, and she noted that we're now evolving from simple social conversations to business-related conversations, and this is when this word or this phrase, conversational commerce, started to come about and really started pivoting things. So. Messaging is beginning to eclipse conventional feed-based social networking apps, and people are using these devices that are now, they're all over the marketplace, right? To communicate with friends, with each other, with other people, to coordinate. And as a result of all of this behavior, the centrality of the use cases now, we're starting to see a lot of companies shifting to bring their services to this context. My own examples, I mean, I'm on WhatsApp, and I've got probably about 10 different groups that I've created on my WhatsApp. One is just for my class of 97 high school. I've got like 50 friends from high school from that year. Then I've got one that's more intimate friends. Then I have one for just family, right? And these are interactions that maybe they would have been had on social media, maybe in my news feed. But now I have a way to do it where it's much more private, much more secluded, and it's just for these groups. And it becomes much more relevant for us. So these are just different examples that that are probably anecdotal from myself, but I'm sure many of you can probably attest to your own stories in this regard. So real quick, before we go to our panel, I want you guys to start thinking about this, and maybe we'll give you guys a trivia question here, right? So what are the top 2 most downloaded apps of all time? Just simply want you to think about this, pop it in your head. Maybe if you want, maybe even throw it in the chat if you wanted to. Got it? Lock it in, loaded? All right, so here's the answer. If you guess Facebook and Facebook Messenger, then you're right. All right, so those are the 2 top most downloaded apps of all time. And then if we look at number 3, that's WhatsApp, another messaging tool. Coincidentally, Facebook also owns that. And then number 4 is Instagram. Not necessarily a messaging tool in the same way. You guys know what Instagram is. I don't need to tell you, but it's also owned by Facebook. And then finally, number 5 is Snapchat. So again, look at some of the stats to the right here. 80% of teenagers are using messaging as either their first or second means of communication, and 88% of millennials report that they prefer chatting over the web or social media to talk to a business, right? So just the natural progression where we're seeing things go. So with that, kind of what I'd like us to do is start having, our dialogue. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, Bob.
Ali, that was fantastic. And you know what I loved about the presentation, as you were going through the data, we at Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp have pretty much identical statistics on the usage of Messenger, but there's one stat that I think is really important for the industry to understand, which is the why. Why are consumers wanting to message with business versus sending them an email or calling them? And we also are seeing stats, and I've got a 3-year-old stat, and I love to see that 78% stat, but 3 years ago, 65% of people preferred to communicate via Messenger with a business versus via email or a phone call. And I loved how you talked about the ease of interaction. It's more comfortable, and that's exactly the reason why messaging has taken off. And I would like to start with one question right off the bat after your presentation. And I think it's a question that a lot of people are probably trying to wonder and figure out, which is, how did we get here? How did messaging take off? How did it evolve? Like, we got here fairly quickly if you really think about it, right? You showed Facebook and Messenger, the top 2 downloaded apps. And if anybody remembers, Facebook got pretty much beaten up when we separated Messenger outside of Facebook. And just so you know, we did that because the majority of people who use apps want to use apps for a single purpose. They don't want multi-purpose apps. So that's why it was broken out. You see WhatsApp, which is the largest communication app in the world. And Instagram is fastly growing as a direct communication app. And we just opened up an API for Instagram. But Ali, I would love to start with you, and then Joe, go to you, and then Robert. And let's just talk about how messaging evolved and how we got here.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bob, because I think for us to understand how we got here, we should know the history, why consumers are where they are now. And let's go way back. Let's go back to the days of Bill Gates introducing Windows, right? And when he introduced Windows, it was really built to represent the office space. It was the typewriter replacement. It was, if you look at the office space back then, it's physical folders and files, and he just put them into a virtual context, right? And that was when things were built for the business world. Fast forward a little bit to 95, and that's when Windows 95 came out, and that was Microsoft's attempt at making computers more personal. However, I don't think it really achieved that because it was still cost prohibitive, and you still needed to know how to type. There was formal training required. So there was all these things that still made it a little bit prohibitive. Not everybody was bringing home computers in 95 to their household. Not until Steve Jobs and Apple introduced the iPhone, really. And when they introduced the iPhone, it was a game changer because if you think about it, the iPhone was so simple to use. What Steve Jobs did was made it much more accessible. Why? Because of touch, right? It's simple. Okay, touch that and it's going to open it. So now I didn't need to necessarily know how to run a computer, but yet I had this computer in my hand and it went with me wherever I went. And it was so easy that even there's this document how many little kids, toddlers, knew how to touch the screen and swipe and look at photos. So if it was that accessible and the cost came down compared to the cost of a computer, now suddenly it was more adoption happening. And then naturally that kind of opened the door, in my opinion, for Facebook, where they took it to the next level. I think in social media, they blew up social media because through a mobile device, again, making things much simpler. Facebook was smart to say, click to like, click to share, click to comment. Simple instructions like this made the adoption where there are over 2 billion people on it today. And these are the things that naturally progressed into where now we're at a point where Messenger comes out, right? And now you have the ability to chat. It's all through a simple mobile device. But I think this is kind of the evolution that's gotten us to where we are now today.
Ali, I think you nailed it in terms of when the iPhone came out, because once the iPhone came out, it created a mobile world, right? We live with our phones, and without them, I think we're all nervous, how the world goes. So Joe, I would love to get to you before we get to Robert as the seller, as the one that actually has to sell the end product to that consumer. And I would love to have a quick overview or understanding on how your store uses messaging. And do you outsource people communicating the messages, or do you do it in-house?
We do it all in-house. I mean, I've been in this business for 28 years, and the amount of change that's happened over, we used to spend every Friday and trying to get your newspaper ad together and your radio ad and, make it big. And now even in emails today, I get 300 emails a day trying to call a customer. I get, my extended warranty call like 7 times a day because I'm on our website. But we started with Facebook, actually, Conversations app, like 8 or 9 years ago. And once these guys, we have them direct to all of our sales teams. So whoever gets it first, it's almost like, sitting at the front door waiting for your, guests to come in the door. And, but you have it there. And so, I mean, these guys jump on these things immediately, and they're all pretty, you have to, you have obviously your people that have been in the car business for a long time that aren't super tech savvy. So it's added a new level where we can get some younger kids in who are, again, more tech savvy. And now we have, with Reputation, they have the Google app, but people are much more apt to communicate, especially now we even take some deposits. You have Facebook Pay where you can do right on there now. And I mean, text messaging and sending videos is so much easier than people having to wait for their email and you block you. And I truly feel they're more comfortable communicating that way because that's how they communicate with everybody else nowadays.
You nailed it. And I would love to get to a question from the attendees because it goes right along of what you just said, Joe. And Jose Cortez said, what are some of the challenges we can expect moving to mobile chat conversations instead of the old traditional points of contact? And you talked about your salespeople now are sitting and waiting for that message. Well, I sold cars for 4 years. We used to sit by the phone, right? And wait for the announcement. And then we'd be the first to dial *6, right?
Exactly.
Because we wanted to be the first to pick it up. So can you talk to us about maybe the process or structure you have in place for your team to handle messaging?
Well, originally when we started it, we wanted some people who were tech savvy but now we've taught, it's so easy. I mean, it's like I said, it's like doing a text message or communicating with your friends on Facebook. I mean, and it pops up, whoever grabs it, I'm going to connect you. We have a person that's there that like, I'll connect you with Bob. And, and so they just start talking to the customers. We have another thing that it's been big for us is, you have some people who are Hispanic, and we hired a Hispanic person because they couldn't call in and communicate with, over the phone as much. And so now they have this, and we have a guy, he's just fantastic. And he sells 25 cars a month just because, he's able to communicate with these folks. And I mean, there's really no challenges. And we've moved so much of our ad budget into digital marketing and Facebook, and Bob, close your ears, but it's a lot less expensive than your traditional, so don't change the prices quite yet, but it is just a tremendous value. I mean, and we try to make our guests become friends with their salesperson, where they can put their pictures on there. We put their pictures on our Facebook page, and and these guys don't understand, like, once they start doing that, and they'll, does anybody know anybody who's a good Chevy guy? And they'll be like, yeah, Joe Kepke's great. He was, and it's such a referral process, the whole thing. I mean, it's a new and much easier way to do business, I think.
I think when the mindset at the dealership changes to, okay, I got to build a process to handle this new digital up, right? This new lead. Once that process is in place, we keep hearing dealers are seeing tremendous success, because going back to the morning session, both Jared from Hyundai and David from Asbury said, when we put the buyer in control, right? When we put them in control, messaging allows that, right? It's a better customer experience, and they're willing to pay more. Guys, there's so much research out there that shows that. And, Robert, before I get to you, because I can't wait to hear the OEM POV on this, especially the after sales. Ali, I would love to, you didn't talk about this because you're very humble about it, but what role does reputation play in messaging at the store level? I know you've got software in place to be able to enable that centralized messaging. So if you wouldn't mind just talking about it real quick.
Yeah, definitely, Bob. So if you think about the review space, if you will, when reviews started coming to, we started finding that, I've got to collect reviews from from a plethora of places, be it Edmunds, Cars.com, Google, Facebook. Well, now you had to log in all these different places. So we started aggregating them all in one place. We did sentiment analysis on it, and now you had one place to go to that you can manage all of your conversations, right? So we're seeing the same thing transpire. Right? The same thing's happening now with messaging, where there's Facebook Messenger, you got to cover that. You got your SMS text conversations, you got to cover that. You got to cover Google messaging, right? So now suddenly, same scenario, got to log in all these different places. I got to manage it all. So what we've done is we've created one inbox. They all come in one place. Now, if you're a dealer, you can simply log in one place and engage with your customers quickly and seamlessly right there. So we're organizing it for you pretty quick. And then what we'll do, we'll take it to the next level, and you'll be able to do sentiment analysis on those conversations that are coming in from Messenger. Right? So you'll be able to compare, what's the sentiment of conversations happening on Messenger compared to the reviews I'm getting from Facebook. Is it the same, or is it different stories? what do I need to do to adjust my business case here at the dealership?
It's brilliant. And on behalf of Facebook, Instagram, and I'd even say on behalf of the dealer body, thank you for building that centralized inbox, because it only helps the business work more seamlessly when it's all in a centralized location. And, I'll give you everyone a quick stat. The number one reason, actually, let me tell you the top two reasons as to why people visit, not follow, okay, visit a dealership's Facebook page. One is reviews, which reputation.com is known for a very, very long time, right? Which is the reputation aspect of it. And two, they want to see what type of business that dealership runs, right? What the experience or the expected experience would be. It's about 89% of the reason why people visit a page. So Robert, I want to get to you because when we found out that there was going to be an OEM representative. Yes, go ahead, Joe.
Just add one quick thing about as far as reviews and reputation. This is how powerful this is. First of all, all of our leads that we get from Facebook also go into our e-leads. And if they respond with an email, first of all, they're less likely than if they are to message, if you do Messenger. So it's like the stats, it's like 20% higher closing ratio. But I had a cool meeting a couple of weeks ago where I have 3,000 Facebook friends, and I think I've sold 400 cars to these people. And I'm trying to get these guys to send these reviews out, because Reputation has a thing where you can just send phone number and please send this review back. And I sent out a Facebook message, which it only allows, I think, 50 people I had sold cars to. And our Facebook score was at 4.1 out of 5, because, obviously people who are upset are going to send them in. I got, within the half an hour meeting, I got 48 5-star reviews, and the Facebook score went up 0.5 points. It's just ridiculous. So,
when you just prioritize, or first and foremost, understand why people are considering your store maybe over others, or why they're researching stores in general. And if you just spend that, time to send those requests for reviews, to send those requests to rate your experience, they can go a long way. And listen, like, we don't know when people are researching us, right? We might not necessarily see it, or how they're researching, or what they're researching, but we know they're doing that. A couple of the stats in the morning session showed that. I think it was the Marchex presentation showed how people are researching the stores far greater before post-COVID than before COVID online. So Robert, let me get to you, and thanks for being patient on this. I'm fascinated on the OEM point of view on this for two reasons. One, I truly believe we haven't even touched or tapped into the after sales side of messaging, and how we can connect maybe some of the platforms that dealers are using to Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and text messaging and everything in between. But I would love to get your POV or your point of view on how you see messaging first for after sales, but I well know you have experience in the pre-sale as well. What you think the OEM POV is on messaging?
Well, Bob, I can tell you that this was a perfect time to have this conference, because I don't know if you saw me. I grabbed my phone for 1 second. My vehicle's actually in for service at one of our local Audi stores, and they let me know that it was done, and I actually just paid for my 10K over the phone. So we're talking about convenience, right? And from an after sales standpoint, it's being part of that family and ensuring that that customer purchased their beautiful new Audi, but that their service department is there for them, right? Constantly letting them know about the experience with the service department, potential specials happening at that service department, because everyone in this conference, I'm sure, knows that, competition is fierce, right? Between dealer and dealer, but also the independent. And we know that we need to set ourselves up for success in the future, especially with EVs coming. There'll be less maintenance on those vehicles, and particularly EV customers expect this digital experience, right? That traditional call from their service department doesn't happen anymore. As Ali said, the email, who looked at their email in the last 3 days? You need that instant email notification, notification messenger that what's going on at that store. And that's going to be the winner in the industry as far as from a customer satisfaction standpoint. Traditionally, of course, customers are still going to want the going to the dealership. They still want the online experience of scheduling. They still want to call the store, but we have to be able to provide these options, and these options are what make us wildly successful from a manufacturer standpoint and dealer.
Yeah, let's unpack that, because you just mentioned something that I think the industry would agree with, which is the fact that we're not 100% online transactional yet, right? Some states don't even allow it. You still have to physically come in and sign paperwork. But what the online transaction, or the ability to converse online, allows to happen is to cut time spent with communicating back and forth with the business, right? And being able to show up at the store and spend maybe 30 minutes than the previous, time frame that it is. So I think we're still in a hybrid, and I want to bring up for anybody that this, there's a lot of research out there and stats about digital retailing, right? The ability to buy a vehicle online, and it's still somewhat of a hybrid, however, growing on people being able to purchase their vehicle online. But what has come out of late is this concept of messaging plus digital retailing. And I've seen a lot of statistics that when the buyer or potential buyer has the ability to message with the dealer during their digital retailing experience, they're 2x more likely to purchase. So Joe, I don't know if you see that, or I don't know what you see as it relates to messaging plus digital retailing, or just messaging in general as it plays a role in the overall transaction.
Well, in today's world, with the lack of vehicles, we literally don't have cars to test drive. So we're doing a lot of Chevrolet has this Chevy My Way, where you can do a walk around of the vehicle, and so it's becoming more and more prevalent. Still, people want to come into stores and buy cars, but we have sold a few over the online and did the whole process where we brought it to them, especially during the early stages of COVID. I think people are getting a little more relaxed now, but I mean, we usually have 900 new vehicles on our lot, and right now we have 7. So, so everything that's come in is all pre-sold, and so you're having to do a lot more communication with them, and we do use messaging, text messaging as well. But yeah, it's a different world right now.
So that's a great point. And, being a GM dealer, I know they've been hit some of the hardest with not only pandemic and building vehicles, but the chip shortage, I know, has hit some of the brands harder than others. So we have the ability at Facebook that, once a conversation is open with a customer, and that customer does not delete or archive that conversation, there is the ability to continue messaging with them. And this is where I get excited on the post sale, Robert. So I would love your feedback, and Ali, make sure you jump in. But I envision, at Facebook, we have the ability to target CRM databases. So imagine the dealer is targeting their first service or the maintenance scheduling package, whatever this, whatever the cadence of services, and then being able to literally click and schedule without any interaction between the dealer and the software. The communication is all handled, and that's maybe via a bot or maybe via the BDC, whatever the scenario is. But how does Robert, how does the OEM envision the post sale outside of the brand equity, right, and the retention play? But do you see anything there with the dealers and after sales?
I can tell you that we're doing a lot related to the future in predictive service. So, really marketing through their mobile device, some type of push about when potentially maintenance is due on their vehicle, tires, oil changes, things of that nature, of course, and even a feed about your braking system, or even potentially, not to get too in depth, but a potential technical issue that you might have with your vehicle. And again, like you said, scheduling that service right from the same application and everything would be absolutely amazing and absolutely the future. We're super excited about some activities that we're working on right now. And they're all related. We're really pushing technician walk around video with customers, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. But that's, again, providing this feed to the customer to know everything going on with their vehicle, and to really be able to understand and interact and communicate with that customer at all times of what's happening.
I can't wait to see where we go with messaging and after sales. Auto News had an article this morning just talking about how dealers need to get into the online sales of all their aftermarket products as well as their parts. And I know there's a number of companies out there helping them do that, but I think there's just an untapped opportunity. And I don't have the exact statistic, and maybe you have it, but I believe dealers only capture roughly 8 or 9% of all after sales opportunity. And you mentioned it earlier, Robert, the independents do a phenomenal job at not only marketing what they offer, but making it easy for them to do business. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just
You
want
know,
to say, I think
go ahead, Alex.
thank you. I think that the future of messaging is going to be about these different type of plug and play integrations, right? It's the like fixed stops. It's after sales. It's the, contact the right person at the right time on the right platform. So now I can use Messenger to hit up somebody who I know based on the records that they were supposed to come in for an oil change 3 months ago. So I'm going to hit them with a message that's specific to them, and it's going to give them an incentive to come in for an oil change because now I'm going to win them back. And I know that they're going to get it because it's coming through on Messenger, not email. It's not going to get lost. So that's where I see the future going in terms of fixed ops. I think there's other integrations as well, be it inventory feeds put in there, or direct capabilities to schedule your service appointments. So imagine you get that fixed op message and then the reply back. Now you're taking the conversation to, great, I'd love to come in. And now you've got a response of, okay, here's what times we have available, and it links right into your X time or whatever scheduler you got at the dealership. This is where Messenger is going.
Listen, I know we use Amazon as an example all the time, but listen, they do it right. 1 click, 2 days, your product's on your doors, or sooner now. I mean, I've done 1 click and it's shown up in a day. So other industries are creating this expectation on how businesses and consumers should be able to do business. So I'm excited. I do want to get to a question that we got online. So I'll open this up to anyone, but Rubina Chander asked, what trainings should we introduce to ensure the expected results are achieved by our sales team? So Joe, maybe I'll hand that off to you.
I'm super tech savvy. I mean, but fortunately for anybody who uses it, it's not that difficult. It's like sending a text message. I mean, Facebook Messenger is pretty simple, but I usually am the one who does the training in the store, and I'm also the one who, so I get all conversations. So like I told you, we have that app, where they all try to jump on it. And if somebody doesn't jump on it, I'm immediately them, is somebody getting on this, and I mean, and they'll do it in the middle of the night too. That's the other cool thing, is that it's, it's basically a 24-hour service as opposed to, your 8 to 8 days,
Well, you brought up something interesting, and there's a number of stores, because there's a number of consultants who are pushing this, where a number of dealership websites are becoming formless, right? You can no longer fill out a form and sit and wait, but you can instantly chat. I've got a good dealer friend that sits in Ohio, and he has a button on his website that says, "Ask me anything." And the second you click it, it's an instant message back and forth. And, Ali said this in the beginning, it's the preferred method of communication. I know those of us that are on this call might be a little bit older than the younger generations. And we joke about how they'll sit at a bar, right, and text each other versus communicate with each other verbally. But it's true, right? Like they would just rather communicate via text. So we have to ensure that we adapt to how they want to work with us. And I think we do need to keep in mind that there are other industries and other businesses that are adapting, and we need to do that at the OEM as well as the dealer level.
I would say the key thing though is make sure you have processes in place, because if you don't have enough people, these people will also get turned off if they're not responded to quickly. So you have to make sure, like, you have somebody who's going to be a champion inside of your store, who's going to make sure that these guys are responsible, and gets a list of all of them, because the second they start to get lackadaisical, just like any any person's business, if you don't do the right things and keep them doing it all the time. And because these guests will be, they will get turned off. And the other downside of that is they're on Facebook. And so they can also put a 1-star review up. I waited 3 days to hear a response from Joe, and nobody ever responded to me. So, I mean, you have to make sure you have someone who's
That's where I think, Joe, I think the tools also come in to play that will help the dealer out, where we know you wear so many hats at the dealership. Adding another component of, okay, now we got to manage this. That's where take advantage of the tools that are out there. If they'll simplify the process for you, and it's all in one place for you, or even if there becomes managed services that'll do this on your behalf, just like on the review side. Like, I think those are the things that are going to help our industry in the auto space get to the next level.
So guys, we have go ahead,
Bob,
Robert.
I could just real quick. So something else that messaging can absolutely help with, and Ali commented on this earlier, is quality perception. Being able to push information to customers of difficult to use technology. Unfortunately, Audis are not the easiest to function, and a lot of vehicles aren't. So sometimes customers bring their vehicles to stores and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just a simple having to turn something on or turn something off. So pushing that information helps for customer satisfaction of a customer not bringing their car to a dealer. There's nothing worse than a customer coming to the dealer and leaving saying that there's nothing wrong with their car, right? You waste your time to bring the vehicle there. So difficult to use sometimes options on that vehicle, and pushing that information absolutely helps from the after sales standpoint too.
No, I love it. And listen, I can't wait for the day that I'm targeted. I used to tell this joke in dealer meetings, and sorry, Robert, but I have a Jeep Wrangler, right? And by law, when you purchase a Wrangler, you have to accessorize it. You cannot drive a stock Wrangler, right? There's a law. And I used to ask dealers, anybody want to guess where I purchased my aftermarket accessories? And I bought Mopar accessories, and they'd all say, oh, from the dealer. I was like, no, man, Amazon. I plugged it into the garage and I got all these products sent to me. So I can't wait for the day where I get a Facebook message from the dealer that I purchased from with a list of accessories that go along, and then my ability to click purchase, go pick up, have it shipped, or click the schedule. So listen, guys, we have 1 minute left, and I want to give Ali, I'm going to put him on the spot. I'm going to give him the ability to give the closing remarks. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, to the three of you for joining. This has been fantastic. And I hope we get to continue this conversation moving forward. And Robert, I can't wait to watch you tomorrow. So Ali, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thanks, Bob. I really do appreciate it. I mean, to close things off, I just want to make sure that the passion that you heard on this panel about this particular topic, it doesn't come from anywhere. It comes from information that we see, that we know that's happening today in other industries, other verticals. Sometimes we're a little bit slow as an industry to catch up, but once we do, we end up knocking out of the park. And I'm seeing the same things happen here with messaging and with the capabilities, knowing that our consumers, these are the type of tools that they want to use more so today than any time other. I just want to make sure that you guys are encouraged to do your research, do your homework. If you have questions, you're not expected to know everything. Reach out to folks like us, reach out to Bob, reach out to me, and we'd be happy to set time with you to just walk you through, here's what we're seeing, here's what's going on, here's what things you can do, just best practices even of, just making sure that you're responding to your customers, in timely fashion, make sure you're engaging them there, things like that. So with that being said, I will open myself up, make myself available. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to Reputation. You can go to our website and you can contact us that way. I'm sure this video will also be available later on with our contact information as well. So thank you, Bob. Thank you guys all for really, I think the spirited conversation is great.